I want to pivot a little bit to talk about AI, since
Yeah.
that's part of your expertise. Your company's initiatives have really helped create social change, and I'm curious what you think the role of AI could be in human rights and strengthening human rights.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm excited to talk about it because people do not really put the two together. They don't put AI with humans in any way, let alone with
Mm-hmm.
human rights. And I'm going to speak particularly from my work in the production and the supply chain manufacturing world. There are major human rights violations in the global production pipeline that are driven by capitalist greed, lack of innovation on the technical front, and workers pay for that because they have to work more, getting paid less, and then you have the capitalists trying to exploit workers in order to maximize their benefits. And I'm just going to give some statistics here because not many people understand how big of an issue that is when it comes to workers' rights. Based on data from the United Nations and the International Labor Organization, there is an estimate of 40 million plus people that are in modern slavery. They are
Oof.
exploited both by the private sector and by state authorities. There are 29 million women and girls who are being disproportionately affected out of those 40 million. So the majority that are affected by exploitation
Or
are
women.
women and girls.
Mm.
There's also about 25 million people that are in forced labor, such as domestic work, agriculture, construction, manufacturing, and mining. There's 16 million people who are in forced sexual exploitation, and 1 of 4 victims are children. So worldwide, when we just look at child labor, there is about 218 million children between the age of 5 and 17 that are in employment instead of being in schools, and out of which there are about 151, 52 million that are in child labor. Almost half of them are children that are working in extremely dangerous, hazardous work environments, being exposed to toxic fumes, to chemicals, to materials that can cause irreversible damage on their respiratory, reproductive, and neurological systems. That's what the world of work looks like for the
Yeah.
majority of people out there.
Oof.
When it comes to bringing in technology and how that can actually help to change the working conditions, and I'm so grateful we've had the privilege to be able to go into this field and help so many people when it comes to reducing exploitation of labor and bringing more equity in the workplace through technology. But when it comes to automation, the way automation can impact the reduction of global exploitation, it happens in 3 major ways. First of all, it can save lives by removing workers from conditions that threaten their health and safety. Number 2, it can eliminate the incentive for companies to exploit low-wage workers in local production. And lastly, it could actually help to increase wages and create more jobs. And not only more jobs, but safer and better work environments. So those are really the major things that I personally see. And we've seen it through practice, through the work that we
Right.
do on the ground with the companies that we work with and the organizations that we partner up with. As the entire production cycle becomes efficient due to implementation of AI and
Mhm.
robotics and other exponential technologies, there will be higher levels of productivity that lead to lower prices on products, increase demand, and help companies generate more profits without having to lower the wages of workers and exploit children and women in order to make the profit. And also another thing, when you're really increasing production through implementing automation technologies and AI, you're also creating more jobs because now the company is making more money. They theoretically can pay workers better salaries. They can provide safer and healthier work conditions. And that also gives the opportunity for them to invest in the education and training of workers as they adapt
Right.
to automation and shift into new jobs that focus
Yeah.
more on innovation and new operations. This is really the reality of how the technology works that many people are not fully aware of, and that makes them so scared and unable to understand how actually implementing these technologies can have a huge positive impact.
Okay, so based on that point about creating more jobs, is this true also for less developed countries, or is this mainly for developed countries, since most of the exploitation occurs by foreign private companies, then they exploit the labor force of like a less developed country. If these corporations start using AI, but maybe they do it in the countries where they're located in, this would provide obviously more jobs there, but okay, it would remove the terrible workspace for the people who are in the less developed countries, but would it also provide them jobs? Or
Yeah, it does, because it really applies to all. And like you mentioned, most of the exploitation happens in local production, meaning that companies come in to places where they think they could save on labor and they could save on cost, and they set up their manufacturing plants. And then they start to export to other places, but they're reducing their cost mainly by exploiting workers, which is the craziest thing ever. But really, wherever you are, if the goal of the company, by exploiting workers, is to reduce costs and maximize profit, when the processes of production get automated, no matter where you are, the companies can save money, they can experience growth without having to compromise the human dignity and sacrificing millions of people's health and safety. This is just how it works. Of course, the wages will still differ between country to country, but at least the exploitation part will not be there. Being exposed to danger and to highly toxic environments will be eliminated or reduced. The age of the workers will be more monitored. How the work environment is set up will also be more monitored and will be more legal and set up in respect to human rights. So again, the impact is absolutely positive wherever you are. It doesn't matter. But since companies mainly go to other markets to set up production shops and manufacturing plants, the main reason is to really minimize the cost and maximize the profit. And they go about it normally by exploiting workers, because they do deploy very old school and traditional ways of production as well.
No one wants to be exploited, and I always think that, especially kids, like, if you have a whole generation of kids that are not being exploited anymore, they can get their education and then, help their countries grow and be developed. I think in our internet society where we can all see each other, we can all compare to each other, and I think this technology can help even the playing field a little bit, right? So because no one has to do these jobs where they're being exploited, now they can start thinking of ways to become their own entrepreneurs, or to be more creative, or do jobs that aren't as automatic and more manual, but more creative and human. So,
absolutely. Especially that when you implement these technologies, you're really giving people the power back to think, rather than being labor machines that are being used just for their physical capacity, like any machine. That's why we bring the machine. We bring the machine to give the human their humanity back. That's my philosophy. That's my take on this. We don't create the machine in order to take humanity away from humans. We bring it in so we can give them humanity back, so they could think, they could enjoy themselves, they could be less robotic and less used and abused as labor workers, and more respected for their capacity to think and to innovate and to participate in a working environment where they are more valued for their intellectual capacities.
That sounds good to me. Yeah, that sounds great to me.